Hey everyone, welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we're exploring a really fascinating devotional called The Law of the Heart and Spiritual Allegiance. And honestly, it's going to totally change how you think about doing the right thing. Because it's all about what actually matters to God. Here's a little hint for you. It's not just about what you do on the outside, but what is happening way down deep on the very inside of you.
So, to get us started, I want you to imagine something. Let's say your mom or dad asks you to clean your room. Now be honest, do you ever find yourself only picking up your toys and making your bed just because a parent is standing right there in the doorway watching you? Or, maybe you just shove everything under the bed and cram it into the closet so it looks clean on the outside, but really, it's still a giant mess where no one can see. Well, if you've ever done that, you are absolutely not alone. But this sets up a really big problem that our devotional talks about today. What happens when we only follow the rules when someone is actually watching us? Section 1. The heart of the devotional. God's true expectations. Okay, let's dive into this and see what it's all about. We're going to look at the exact words from our source text to figure out what God actually expects from us when it comes to following instructions. The devotional starts right off by quoting a super famous verse from the Bible. It says, "Not with eye service, as men pleasers, but as the servants of Christ, doing the will of God from the heart." That's from Ephesians chapter 6, verse 6. Now I really want you to focus on that very last phrase, doing the will of God from the heart. That's basically the secret code for today's entire explainer. God isn't just looking for robots who do exactly what they're told, right? He's looking at the heart. But before we talk more about the heart, we kind of need to talk about a very strange word at the beginning of that quote. That strange word is eye service. If you haven't heard it before, don't worry at all. It's a pretty old-fashioned word. Eye service simply means doing things only when people are watching you, just to please them, instead of doing it from your heart. It's exactly like that room cleaning example we just talked about. If you only clean when mom's eyes are actually on you, well, that's eye service. You're just trying to be a men pleaser. Someone who just wants humans to be happy with them so they don't get in trouble. So the absolutely crucial point here is really captured when we compare these two ideas. When we look at outward acts alone, which is what humans see, we can only judge if you're sitting quietly or doing your homework or sharing your toys. We have to judge by the outside. But when we look at thoughts and affections, well, that is what God sees. God actually looks right past your outward actions and looks straight into your inside thoughts, your feelings, and your desires. Think about it. You could be sharing a toy with your sibling on the outside, but on the inside, you might be thinking some really angry thoughts about them. Humans see the sharing, sure, but God sees the anger. Section 2. The Heavenly Photo Album. Records of the Heart.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is, if God can see our thoughts and feelings, how does the devotional describe the way God actually remembers all of this? The author uses a really fascinating, honestly kind of complicated-looking vintage word here. It's daguerreotyped. Can you try saying that? Daguerreotyped. It's a very old-fashioned word for being photographed. Back before we had digital cameras or smartphones, the very first photographs ever were called daguerreotypes. They actually captured a permanent picture on a piece of metal. So the devotional uses this specific vintage word to describe exactly how God keeps a record of our lives. And this brilliantly illustrates the idea that heaven takes pictures of the heart. The devotional explains that our life and our character are daguerreotyped or, photographed in the books of heaven. But remember, God isn't just taking a snapshot of you walking the dog or doing the dishes. No way. Because God looks at the inside. These heavenly photographs actually capture what you were thinking and feeling while you were doing those things. The picture in the books of heaven shows your true character, not just your outward actions.
Section 3. The Bare Minimum Game. Evading God's Law.
That heavenly photo album sounds pretty serious, doesn't it? Well, because of this, the devotional warns us about a trap that a lot of people fall into without even realizing it. The devotional calls this out as deceiving our own souls. Here's how it works. People try to narrow down God's rules to the very smallest claims. They kind of want to see exactly how close they can get to doing something wrong without actually crossing the line and getting in trouble. I mean, have you ever held your finger like 1 inch from your sibling's face and said, "I'm not touching you, I'm not breaking the rule"? That right there is playing the bare minimum game. You're trying to avoid being branded or labeled as a rule breaker, but your heart is still totally in the wrong place.
But the text plainly declares that this game absolutely does not work with God. Why? Because God's law can be broken in our thoughts, feelings, and desires. The devotional states that God's law is exceedingly broad. That basically means it covers way, way more than just our outward actions. If you're secretly wishing you could do something mean, or if you're holding on to a really bad attitude on the inside while smiling on the outside, the devotional says that is actually breaking the rule. Why? Because God's rules apply to our hearts first.
Section 4. Working from the inside out.
spiritual obedience.
So if we can't just play the bare minimum game, and if our inside feelings matter just as much as our outside actions, how do we actually fix this? Let's compare two different types of people that the devotional describes. First up, we have someone playing the evasion game. To evade just means to dodge or avoid. This person is always seeking opportunities to evade God's law, looking for loopholes so they can just do what they want. But then we have the loyal soul. Instead of dodging, the loyal soul cheerfully gives full spiritual obedience. They don't want to just do the bare minimum. They want to love God supremely, with everything they have. They give the biggest, most generous interpretation to God's rules, simply because they actually want to be good on the inside.
Let's move to and see how this builds, because the devotional gives us a really clear sequence for how we actually become a loyal soul. It says, the work must begin at the heart. So that's step one, the heart gets right with God. That is literally where the whole shebang starts. Once the heart is fixed, we move to step two. Your thoughts and desires begin to naturally change. You just stop wanting to be mean or sneaky. And finally, step three, your words and outward actions follow. It's kind of like a fountain of water. If the water source at the very bottom is clean and pure, then all the water that bubbles up to the top is going to be clean and pure too. This brings us to a really powerful summary quote right from the devotional. It says, religion is not a matter of externalities. Religion is a thing of the heart. Now, externalities is really just a big fancy word for outside stuff. Following God isn't just about the outside stuff, showing up, looking nice, and doing your chores while people watch. No, it's a thing of the heart. The text tells us that if the heart is right, your whole entire life becomes purified, refined, and ennobled. It literally fills your whole life with light. So I want to leave you with a question to think about today as we wrap up this explainer. Who really has your heart's allegiance today? Allegiance just means loyalty. Are you just playing the rule-following game to stay out of trouble, doing that eye service thing just to please the people around you? Or are you letting God work from the inside out, changing your thoughts, your feelings, and your desires so that your heart truly belongs to Him? It's a huge question for sure, but understanding it changes absolutely everything. Thank you so much for exploring this devotional with me today. Keep learning, keep growing, and always remember to check what's going on inside your heart.